On the morning of March 23, 2021, a container ship the length of the Empire State Building turned sideways in the Suez Canal. High winds, a narrow channel, and a tangle of navigational factors ending with its bow buried in the bank. It wedged there, corner to corner, and it would not move. For 6 days, a canal that carries somewhere around 12 to 15% of global trade sat blocked, by common estimates a stalled flow worth billions of dollars a day. Hundreds of vessels backed up at both ends. Few firms had modeled this exact blockage, even though a single choke point failing was a visible vulnerability. Not because they were careless, because you can name the category and still never predict the day. Low probability, high impact, arriving from a direction no one was watching. Foresight has a name for these, wild cards, and because you can't predict which one hits, there's a companion tool for finding the failure you're already walking toward, the pre-mortem. This episode is both. Every plan we've built so far quietly assumes the road stays open. Last episode's backcast, plant the coffee trees, build the highlands, hit 2040, assumes no one wedges a ship across the supply chain in the meantime. Wild cards are the potholes you can't see from here. And the mistake is thinking that because you can't predict them, you can't prepare for them. Scenario planning, back in 3.1, handled the uncertainties you can name: climate, adaptation. Wild cards are different. Low probability, high-impact developments we treat as too unlikely or too remote to plan around, until one lands and reorders everything. You can often picture the category in advance. What you can't do is predict which one hits or when. A pandemic, a frost, a ship, a bank run, a breakthrough nobody took seriously. You'll never list them all, so memorizing the list is pointless. Building the reflex to look for them isn't. So two moves this episode, and they point in opposite directions. First, outside in, the external shocks that could hit the environment, where they live, how to pre-position. Then inside out, a technique that finds the weakness in your own plan, the failure you're already walking toward before you've even started. Put every possible event on a grid. One axis, how likely. The other, how much it would hurt. Most of what we plan for sits in the likely and manageable corner. Wild cards live in the opposite one, unlikely but devastating. Don't pretend the coordinates are precise. Under deep uncertainty, you can't really price the odds. The grid isn't a calculation, it's a way to surface the events whose impact is too big to ignore, even when the probability is a shrug. You can't predict the specific card, but you can do 3 things. 1. Scan for the categories, the way we practiced in Module 2. You couldn't have predicted the Ever Given, but a single choke point fails was a known vulnerability sitting in plain sight. The specific trigger was a surprise, the category wasn't. 2. Ask the blunt question, what would change everything? 3. Prepare for resilience, not prediction. You don't need to know which shock comes to keep a buffer, a backup, a second supplier. The second tool is smaller and stranger, and I use it constantly. It's called a pre-mortem, and it comes from research psychologist Gary Klein, who wrote it up for the Harvard Business Review in 2007. A post-mortem asks why the patient died. A pre-mortem runs before the project starts, but it uses the same past tense trick. Here's the move. Don't ask your team what could go wrong. Optimism and politeness will bury the real answers. Instead, tell them to imagine it's a year from now and the plan has already failed. Completely, humiliatingly. It's dead. Now ask, what killed it? The grammar shift from might fail to did fail is the entire technique. Suddenly, people can see it, and one rule makes or breaks it. Everyone writes their own list first, silently, before anyone speaks. Otherwise, the first confident voice anchors the whole room. And this isn't just a nice reframe. In 1989, three researchers, Deborah Mitchell at Wharton, Jay Russo at Cornell, and Nancy Pennington at Colorado, ran a study on exactly this. They found that imagining an event has already happened, instead of imagining it merely might, led people to generate roughly 30% more plausible explanations for it. Your brain is better at explaining a fact than forecasting a maybe. The pre-mortem hijacks that. There's a social bonus too. In a normal meeting, the junior person who senses the plan is doomed stays quiet. Nobody wants to be the pessimist in the room. The pre-mortem hands everyone permission. You're not doubting the plan, you're explaining a failure the exercise already declared. The quiet skeptic finally talks, and that skeptic may be holding the one risk the room hasn't priced in yet. Let's aim both tools at the coffee migration plan from last episode. First, a wild card. In late 2012, a fungus called coffee leaf rust, La Roya, swept Central America. Rust wasn't new and it wasn't unknown. What shocked everyone was the scale. A warm, wet season and vulnerable varieties let it affect more than half the region's coffee-growing area, cost on the order of $1 billion, and hit an estimated 300,000 to 400,000 jobs, pushing families off their land. A familiar risk everyone had underweighted, from a direction the frost watchers weren't facing. Now the pre-mortem. Stand in 2040 and say the migration plan failed, the cup did not survive. Why? Work backward, and the answers come fast. The rust followed the trees uphill to the new highlands. The new regions ran short of water. Smallholders couldn't afford the resistant varieties, so only big estates adapted. A trade shock cut off the new supply routes. None of those showed up in the optimistic backcast. All of them are now on the list. That's the whole payoff. 10 minutes of imagining the plan dead just handed you 4 risks you can now design around. Buffers, backups, resistant stock for smallholders, a second trade route. You didn't predict the future. You interrogated your own plan until it confessed. Put the two together and you get a discipline for the shocks you can't see. Stop trying to predict the specific card. You'll lose that game every time. Instead, scan for the categories, pre-mortem your plans to find the failure you're already walking into, and build resilience where the failures cluster. The goal was never a perfect forecast. It's a plan that bends instead of snapping. And notice which fixes keep showing up. A buffer, a backup supplier, resistant stock, a second route. Those are moves that pay off no matter which wildcard actually lands. They have a name, no regret moves, though low regret is the more honest label, since even these carry a cost, and they get a full episode later in the course. For now, just notice that the pre-mortem tends to point straight at them. One caution so you don't overcorrect. A pre-mortem run by a frightened team turns into a list of reasons to do nothing. The point isn't to talk yourself out of the plan. It's to make the plan survivable. You still plant the trees. You just plant a hardier variety, keep a reserve, and watch the rust. Readiness, not paralysis. Go back to the ship in the canal. The real surprise was never that a vessel ran aground. That happens. The surprise was discovering in 6 days how much of the world quietly depended on one narrow lane staying clear. The wild card didn't create the fragility, it revealed it. That's what wild cards do. They show you the load-bearing thing you forgot you were leaning on. So here's the one to drop in the comments, and it takes 5 minutes. Take one real plan you've got going right now. Imagine it's a year on, and it has completely failed. Then write down 5 reasons it died, fast, before you second-guess them. Circle the one that would have been hardest to see coming until it was too late. Put that one below. That's a pre-mortem. You just ran it. You can't predict the ship, or the frost, or the fungus. You can find the lane you're leaning on and give yourself a second one. Next time, the reason your plan actually fails is usually not the obvious shock. It's the consequence of a consequence, the effect 2 or 3 steps downstream that nobody traced. That's second-order thinking, and it's where the real surprises hide.